So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ozunimi Iti, Industrial Development Officer from UNIDO Environment Department, and I'm your moderator today. How can governments develop policies that improve women's participation in green industry? How can women position themselves to benefit from the greening of industry? We will be discussing these matters and more over the next 2 hours. We'll first start with opening statements from UNIDO and UN Women, and then we will watch a short video summary of the project. After that, a presentation of main research findings, a moderated panel discussion, and Q&A. Before we move over to opening statements, I'll just go over some house rules and some information. To facilitate engagement, we have interpretation in French, Spanish, and Khmer. We're just trying to sort out the Khmer interpretation booth, so bear with us. I would appreciate if speakers can pace their words a little bit so that the interpreters have a chance to interpret what they're saying. As we have many attendees, I would encourage everyone to engage at first through the chat box where UNIDO team members will be there to take questions. If you want to speak during the Q&A session, you can put up your hand using the reaction buttons and someone will unmute you. And I would encourage very concise questions. I would now take opening remarks, first of all, from the Managing Director of UNIDO's Environment and Energy Directorate, Stefan Sikas. And then I would take opening remarks as well from Agnes Fury of UN Women, Senior Partnership Specialist. I will hand over now to Stefan Sikas.
Thank you very much, Nimi. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. It is with great pleasure that I welcome all of you today, and I'm very pleased to see such a large attendance of people interested in creating opportunities for women in green industry. Let me start with expressing on behalf of UNIDO our deep gratitude to the governments of Cambodia, Peru, Senegal, and South Africa for their partnership, interest, and involvement in the program Economic Empowerment of Women in Green Industry. I would also like to thank the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, of Germany, who provided funding for phase 1 of the program. Despite many efforts by governments to achieve gender equality and to empower all women and girls, women are still economically disadvantaged. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development places a much needed focus on sustainable industrialization and on gender equality, elevating them to sustainable development goals. However, these objectives were not new at the time of adopting the SDGs in September 2015. Already in 1995, the Beijing Platform for Action called on governments and other actors to actively promote women's full and equal participation in environmental decision-making at all levels, to integrate gender concerns and perspective in sustainable development policies and programs, and to improve assessment of the impact of developmental and environmental policies on women. Having talked about development, let us look more specifically at economic and industrial development. Industry is an important source of greenhouse gas emission. Its share is about 30% of all emissions, not counting for emissions related to resource generation and for products. At the same time, if we want to have development while reducing such emissions and other environmental impacts of mankind, industry will provide the technical solutions and the upscaling needed for it. Globally, the manufacturing industry provides nowadays 25% of all employment, but in 2019, only 19% of this industry employment were women. The ability of women to contribute to the necessary positive changes is greatly limited by their small share in industry development, employment. Upscaling change and having industry move from a position as a polluter to being a savior requires to use the qualified input of everyone and not to underrepresent women. There is a need to gender mainstream green industrial policies to ensure that women are part of the transition. To do so, research studies and gender statistics, including sex disaggregated data, are needed to understand the realities of women working as entrepreneurs and professionals in green industry in low and middle income countries to be able to subsequently facilitate improvement. The first phase of this program, implemented by UNIDO and UN Women, provided in-depth research on existing policies, training, and strategies for mainstreaming green industrial policies. Today, we will share the key results of the research from the 4 countries, and we will hear from a diverse panel of experts who will discuss opportunities, challenges, and next steps to reduce and eliminate barriers to women's participation in green industry, including plans for implementation of phase 2 of the program. We will also explore how the findings can inform the global advancements of a gender-responsive green industrial agenda. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sikas, for those welcoming words. I will pass on the floor now to Agnes Phiri, who is a partnership specialist from UN Women South Africa, to give some welcoming words from UN Women. Before I do that, I would just like to say, if anyone is looking for interpretation, please just click where it says more after the video icon, and you will see the interpretation button right above reactions. So over to Ms. Phiri now.
Thank you, Program Director. And on behalf of UN Women South Africa Multi-Country Office, it's a pleasure for me to speak on behalf of UN Women. For us as UN Women, I think the issue of making sure that women really access opportunities in the green industry is a no-brainer. So when we partnered with UNIDO and the German government on phase 1 of the project, I think this is a no-brainer for us. As everyone knows, I think UN Women is always about how do we really empower women to access opportunities in every sector. And for UN Women South Africa Multi-Country Office, one of our key flagship programs is actually on stimulating equal opportunities for women to have access in a lot of sectors that are having a big spend. And we know that the green industry is the future. And we want to position women in that space. And we're actually very privileged to have worked with government and other stakeholders in this process. We know we are aligned with the ongoing programs that the UN Women is running in terms of how do we ensure that whatever is coming from these studies is actually aligned with what we are already implementing on the ground. I think for UN Women and UNIDO, I think we want to continue with this program. We want to bring in private sector as well in terms of how do we ensure that private sector actually plays a big role in this, because we know private sector, no one is left behind in terms of accessing the potential this industry has. We have research done, I think pre-2017, when this study was done, a lot of issues were raised. One was the women in leadership in the green industry was very weak. Skills was very weak. In terms of how do we bring women more into this industry again, was lacking. So we're hoping the finding of this initial report actually speaks to what the solutions should be. For UN Women would want to see actually, after 2 years or 3 years, we're actually monitoring in terms of how many women have actually accessed opportunities and at what spend. Is it a big spend? Is it a small spend? Does it further marginalize women? I think for us as UN Women, that is what we'd really want to measure. We would want to thank the government of South Africa and the partners that participated in the initial phase, to really thank in terms of what has been done, what has been put into the report, what are the issues that need to be addressed, and what is being done. Without further ado, I would really want to look forward to solutions that really ensure that women do access these opportunities that we're talking about. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ferry. As we have heard from both the opening statements, Mr. Sikas said we need both men and women if we would like to upscale industry to be a big driver of sustainable development. We need the inputs of both men and women. And as Ms. Ferry has said as well, it would be good for us to be able to measure how these green policies has really changed the lives of women. Have they been positive or negative? And really to then adjust the way we approach them. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next segment. What we will be showing a video now that just gives a short summary of what we did in the project on economic empowerment of women in green industries in the 4 countries, Cambodia, Peru, Senegal, and South Africa.
The Industrial Revolution transformed the well-being of society, enabling advances in production of medicines, food and vehicles, and boosting international trade. But at the same time, putting a heavy strain on the environment and society. The manufacturing industry, a major contributor to global economic growth and employment, can also be a major driver of sustainable development. To achieve this, we must employ strategies to reduce its negative externalities. One of those key strategies is the greening of industrial processes. Green industry promotes industrial production without expense to the environment or adverse impact on human health, whilst providing decent work for all. It is therefore paramount that its successful development and growth should be gender inclusive. The objective of the project was to improve the representation of women as leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals in green industry, providing advice to policymakers and practitioners on how to apply a framework to gender mainstream policies and ensure that those policies are better adapted to deal with gender differences. In each country, together with local stakeholders, highly qualified experts developed policy assessment reports, providing evidence-based recommendations to redress gender imbalances in selected industrial subsector policies. Those recommendations were used to create national work plans, ensuring continuity of activities. The project also provided tailor-made capacity building to policymakers and entrepreneurs on issues related to the advancement of women in green industry. The project created momentum by developing a better understanding of women's cultural, traditional roles and affinity with the environment, influencing their perceived strengths in green industry. The countries began the process of reformulating existing policies and formulating new ones, taking gender inequalities into consideration. In Senegal, for example, the recommendations of the report were included in the development of a new environmental policy. In South Africa, the Renewable Energy Master Plan is being gender mainstreamed. Visibility and understanding of the opportunities and challenges in this industry for women has increased. In South Africa and in Peru, groups of women who attended the training started their own business networks. By considering gender differences when developing green industrial policies and providing funding to support women, you can also create opportunities for women in green industry.
Okay, just to mention to everyone, links will be provided to the reports that were mentioned in the video if people would like to have a more in-depth view of the work that was carried out. So I will now move over to the presentation section. where we'll have Dr. Suyata Ganguly, who is a gender research specialist from the organization Includivate, which worked with UNIDO to carry out an assessment of policies related to green industries in all of the 4 countries. She will talk a little bit more in depth about the work that was done and about the research findings and also on the recommendations that were made. I will hand over now to Dr. Ganguly, and please, if attendees would like to know a bit more about the participants in this meeting, please refer to the biography handbook that was provided. Dr. Ganguly, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to present the findings of the report. This particular report or this particular work is a part of the larger global program that is economic empowerment of women in green industry. And the purpose is to advise policymakers and practitioners on the establishment and implementation of a policy framework to integrate gender and green industrial. So the presentation will consist of methodology, how we did it, feminist critical policy analysis, a snapshot of the findings from the policy analysis that we did, key findings from the desk review, as well as from the mixed method approach that we had, and lastly, wrap up the presentation with the recommendations. So the research study used a mixed methods approach combining qualitative and quantitative data collection. The research was conducted in 4 phases: desk review, an initial policy review, feminist critical policy analysis, qualitative data collection from the key informant interviews, as well as focus group discussions, quantitative data collection in the form of an online survey with women working as entrepreneurs, and the data was collected in January to March 2020. The draft report was subjected to iterative review and comment by country steering committees before finalization. Next slide, please. So we spoke with 361 people in 4 countries. So you can see on the slide the size of sample by instruments, that is the online survey, focus group discussion, and the interviews. Out of the total women who were women entrepreneurs who were interviewed, we can see that they belonged to the green industry as well as the conventional, the brown industry. So the selection of the sectors and subsectors was based on collaborative discussions between the project's national coordinators, UNIDO country representatives, and the national focal points. And potential synergies with program for country partnership projects and the alignment with the government's priority sectors were also taken into consideration. So green industry is quite broad, so we selected certain subsectors in these 4 countries, that is Cambodia, Peru, Senegal, and South Africa, and the entire research work was dependent on these subsectors. So a snapshot of what we got from the feminist critical policy analysis. So most of the policies reviewed in the 4 countries did not meaningfully engage with the gender issues and gender perspectives. Although many of the policies have good implementation plans, there is further scope for active policies to become more gender responsive. And this could be achieved by revisiting policies to include language and plans that address the key factors underpinning women's economic empowerment in green industry, revisiting and developing specific monitoring and evaluation frameworks that collect baseline sex disaggregated data with indicators for gender equality in green industry, revisiting policies to ensure the differential needs of women are meaningfully included in the policies, because we shouldn't be treating women as a homogeneous group. They have their own specific needs, and that should be addressed. And then conducting midterm evaluations that will help to contextualize the progress of the policy, and also by using intersectional gender data to understand the multidimensional and unique social positions women occupy, and what needs to change to provide equitable opportunities for diverse groups of women to succeed in green industry as entrepreneurs or and professionals. So these are really needed. So findings from the primary data. So in this particular section, we'll be presenting on the findings that we got from the primary data that is from the desk review, but mainly from the key informant interviews, the focus group discussions, and the online survey. So in all countries, there is currently limited evidence on women's empowerment and involvement in green industry. And this is a problem given the existing gender inequalities in entrepreneurial role in green industry that are expressed both overtly and covertly in discriminatory practices. However, more women are becoming or aspiring to become entrepreneurs in the green industry than in conventional industries. And there is a strong perception that there are more opportunities for women to progress on an equal playing field in green industry. So here you can see that around 91% of women in green industry, they are on full-time basis. They are the entrepreneurs, whereas it's 63% in Senegal, 69% in Peru, and 77% in Cambodia. So what are the barriers to start a green business? In all countries, there is currently limited evidence on women's empowerment and green industry involvement in green industry. There are different barriers. For example, the high cost associated with business startup, unavailability of technology and lack of awareness about starting a business. There is no clear-cut definition of green industry. That was really surprising, and we got this across all countries. Due to lower production cost, products manufactured by conventional industries are often less expensive than those produced by green industries, putting green industry products at a disadvantage. And there is lack of incentives for business operating in green industries. Further, the barriers, if we divide them into barriers to advancement and barriers to transformation, then we can say that the barriers that are related to barriers to advancement are lack of awareness about policies, programs, and opportunities, lack of access to technology, market, capital, collateral, credit resources, network, mentoring, and as well as necessary skills. And barriers to transformation are harmful social norms, restricted mobility, unpaid care work, intersectional inequalities, discriminatory hiring practices, lack of self-confidence, low access to right to information. So to quote one of the key informants, but if all the assets are in the name of their husband and you need a collateral, then you need husband's support to get bank loan. That means a woman, can get a bank loan independently as long as you comply with the condition of the bank. You need to have a land or a building that you can, put as a collateral. So if everything is in the name of your husband, what can you do? So this is we can say a picture that we got from the surveys that, yes, these are the disadvantages that women have. So, yes, we do know that there are barriers, there are challenges, but it's always good to look for the windows of opportunities. So what are those opportunities that are available in a green industry for women entrepreneurs or women professionals? So generating visibility and role models. For example, the South African Women in Science Awards profile women scientists and researchers as role models for young women and girls. Strengthen opportunities for women in certain sectors such as renewable energy and green industry. For example, in South Africa, the National Cleaner Production Center's accredited energy training program is free for women in August 2020. And then mentoring and networking. Cisco, that is CISCO, Connected Women program in Peru, that provides women workers with professional development training, coaching, and shadowing program to learn from executives and advocates. In Cambodia, She Investments, Grow Asia, and other organizations are playing a crucial role in capacity building, mentoring, and networking. So to quote one of the key informants, I'm seeing a lot of women who are interested, willing to learn, and willing to have careers in green industry space. I think the reason is that everyone wants to have a sense of having contributed. Most women inherently want to do just that. They want to contribute to the growth of the economy and the solutions to the energy issues in our country. So overall, the key recommendations that we got are better understanding of the green industry business is needed, For example, incentives available for women to enter green business, public awareness raising about green industry through training, campaign, information sharing, primarily focusing on small-scale women entrepreneurs, considering as a practical entry point to introduce the concept of green industry, or even job opportunities and support or incentives. The existing policies should be implemented well and linking or building on existing ministries' relevant programs that could leverage integration of gender and green industry. Capacity building of the low government institutions who are responsible to execute the green laws, promote successful women entrepreneurs in green industry to be the ambassadors or the role models to share their experience to generate interest and awareness among women and girls. National representative data on how green growth will impact women entrepreneurs and professionals is needed, with robust monitoring and evaluation plans to track structural level gender transformation at national level, capacity building for entrepreneurs, for example, in management skills, conversion to green industry and gender mainstreaming, for example, development of a pipeline of relevant education and skills and promotion of entry level for women, to develop more leadership and management skills for professional women, specialist technical skills development programs for women entrepreneurs. So here are some country-specific recommendations that are selected by countries for their work plan. So in Cambodia, we see that awareness raising about what green industry is has been taken up, capacity building of national and local government institutions, developing and implementing a policy framework to better integrate gender into green industrial policies, promoting collaborative networks and exchange visit programs. There are many, but people need to be aware and know about those networks and exchange programs. Developing or strengthening monitoring mechanisms, systematically collecting more nationally represented gender disaggregated data. This is a problem that was found across all the countries, that we really lack gender disaggregated data. So that's something that has been included in the work plan. Next slide, please. So this is for Peru, to generate more awareness about the benefits of gender equality and women's inclusion and augment the knowledge and capacities of policymakers in terms of gender mainstreaming. Again, to provide data that can help policymakers understand the economic opportunities the country is missing, strengthen business network, access to finance, and to mainstream the gender approach in prioritized policies. So there are sometimes mention of gender in the policies, but those are more or less tokenistic. So it will be great if that's there in the implementation plan, how those programs or the policies are actually implemented by considering gender. Now, these are the recommendations in Senegal that has been accepted in the country plan, work plan, that is to formulate new or reformulate existing gender responsive green industrial policies and adopt them. We can see it's more or less revolving around the same issues, to strengthen individual and institutional capacities for policy formulation, implementation at national and global level, to improve knowledge base on gender and green industrial policies and outreach actions. In South Africa, awareness raising and education on gender mainstreaming and green industry has been emphasized. National stakeholder engagement and consultation on policies, plans, and programs have been undertaken. Development of framework or mechanisms for collection of sex disaggregated data and intersectional data. Development of gender responsive budgeting, monitoring, evaluation, and auditing framework and capacity building has been undertaken or has been included in the work plan. Formulation or reformulation of laws, policies, plans, and programs, development of support mechanisms for women, identification and support of skills development programs for women, and development of a monitoring and evaluation framework, including indicators and timeframes. So, while there are policies on women's economic empowerment and climate change adaptation, there is a lack of synergy between the two. That is, with the dearth of gender-responsive green industrial policies. So there are policies on climate, there are policies on gender, but the synergy between the women's economic empowerment and climate change adaptation is actually missing. The study found that across countries, there are organizations and institutions working for women entrepreneurs, but not specifically within the green industry. This could be attributed to the fact that green industry is new and not yet well defined across countries. So this is where I wrap up my presentation. Thank you for your attention. And as Nimi already mentioned, if you want to know more detail about this project, we provide you the link. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ganguly, for that short presentation on research findings. There's much more contained in the report, so please click on the link. I would just like to highlight one thing that Suyata mentioned during her presentation. We noticed that the barriers to transformation were quite general. And these are things that exist whether the green industry is there or not. These are really overall barriers that women face. So we see that the task is not just within the green industry or even within the industry sector. It's really a task for society to really improve the conditions of women and to help women to contribute more to the productivity or to the economic advancement of countries and also to green industry. So we will now move on to the next segment. If you have questions for Suyata, we can take those later during the Q&A session, but we can move on to the panel discussion now, which is basically really a discussion between different stakeholders from the countries that took part in this project, where they talk a bit more about both the findings of the project and give more of their opinions on what the project meant to them, how the recommendations would be applied in their countries, and how this impacts everyone globally. So I will call on the panelists now. I'll give just a brief introduction of the panelists. We have Ms. Lucia Ruiz from Peru, who is former Minister and Vice Minister of Ministry of Environment of Peru. She was the project focal point. Ms. Amy Mbengwe from Senegal, she is the CEO of EcoBag Recycling. We also have Dr. Annelien Chetty, who is Chief Operations Officer of the Department of Trade and Industry, South Africa, and a member of the steering committee of the project. We have Ms. Swai from South Africa. She's an executive from the South African Wind Energy Association. And we also have an independent academic, Dr. Amira Kadu, who is a professor in finance with concentration on digital transformation and green transition from Carthage University. I would like to welcome all the panelists. We will start with questions from the other panelists. Ms. Ruiz, the first question is, based on the recommendations of the policy assessment report for your country, what was prioritized in Peru's work plan and why?
Primero, muchísimas gracias por permitirme estar aquí. Fue una experiencia increíble la que se llevó a cabo con este proyecto. Gracias a Unido por eso. Y en base a estas cuatro conclusiones que Sujata nos ha mencionado en el caso de Perú, definitivamente hay tres aspectos que son fundamentales a ser considerados. El primero es que hay una necesidad de visibilizar esta ausencia, no solamente del tema de género en políticas públicas, sino también de entender la industria verde. Eso es lo primero que tiene que quedar claro, porque se ha visto y a veces hasta sorprendido el hecho de que no se hable de género en algunas políticas que son claves, o que aún mencionando la palabra género en estas políticas no se instrumentalizan. Es sumamente interesante entender que hay que comprender el término y el porqué antes de simplemente transcribirlo en un tema de políticas públicas. Entonces, esta visibilización es importantísima además en un país en que las tres industrias que fueron analizadas tienen un alto nivel de informalidad. Al tratarse de industrias con un alto nivel de informalidad, ha sido necesario visibilizar cada vez más el rol de entender qué era economía verde, qué era industria verde, porque no se tenía muy claro este primer tema. Lo que no se conoce no se va a poder reflejar y no se va a poder implementar. En segundo lugar, algo que nos ha quedado clarísimo es que la necesidad de construir capacidades y fortalecer redes es clave, es necesaria. Ya se empezó con el proyecto, pero tenemos que mantenerlo. La acogida que tuvieron las clases, los talleres, los cursos que se llevaron fue increíble. Esa necesidad terrible que ha habido por aprender y relacionarse ha sido increíble. Y precisamente nuevamente, al tratarse de un ámbito informal, este fue el espacio en que se encontraron con sus pares. Sin embargo, hay otras industrias en las que ya las mujeres están tomando la iniciativa, como puede ser en el Perú, minería, etcétera, donde están habiendo espacios de intercambio. Y tercero, para no tomar más tiempo del que nos fue indicado, el tema del acceso al financiamiento. Quedó clarísimo que la mujer tiene muchísimas más barreras para acceder al financiamiento y en lugares como Perú, la microempresa y la pequeña empresa, que es la norma y no la excepción, necesitan ese acceso porque en nuestro país las mujeres son cabeza de familia fundamentalmente y ese acceso al financiamiento es increíble. Para eso hay que involucrar a las empresas financieras de microfinanzas, fundamentalmente de microfinanzas en países en desarrollo como el Perú. Porque son ellas las que pueden llegar al ámbito rural o urbano directamente con las mujeres. Esa sería mi primera intervención. Gracias.
These are the first initial remarks I can give you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ruiz. I fully agree that if people want to engage on gender issues properly, they need to understand, first of all, what is the meaning. And these policies need to have clear definitions within them as well. And of course, the stakeholder engagement process at the beginning is also very important to bring people together to really explain what the point of gender mainstreaming is and why women and why it is important in different industries and sectors. I have another question now for Ms. Amy Mbengwe. Please, what needs to happen? What do you think needs to happen so that the existing main barriers in the brown industry identified during the presentation are not perpetuated in the green industry?
Okay, Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come here in this panel. I would like to apologize first for my later connection. I had some connection issues. So if you don't mind, I would like to follow my intervention in French, because I will be more comfortable with that. If you don't mind.
This is fine.
Okay, thank you. Donc, ce que je voudrais dire en tant que entrepreneur évoluant dans le
entrepreneur in the green industry is that the challenges we face are a major constraints, because these are challenges that other people in the sector face. For example, moving to green industry is already a challenge in itself. So it's important that we take stock, we do some diagnostics to look into the various businesses in the green sector.
Falloir en tout cas un cadre juridique et réglementaire plus favorable, et surtout d'essayer de mieux les outiller. Alors, comment mieux outiller une entreprise dans l'industrie verte? C'est déjà d'identifier ses contraintes, d'identifier ses difficultés. Et en identifiant ces difficultés-là, on peut permettre à cette entreprise d'être à niveau. Et lorsqu'on est à niveau, je pense qu'il y a moins de risques aujourd'hui de ne pas sortir, en tout cas, du cadre, on va dire, green ou d'industrie verte. Et cette mise à niveau-là, elle passera, à mon avis, nécessairement par l'accès à une technologie moderne. Véritablement l'accès également à un foncier qui permette de travailler convenablement. Pour ma part, par rapport à mon expérience, en fait, les contraintes majeures auxquelles nous sommes confrontés, indépendamment des contraintes qui sont liées plutôt à l'accès au financement, c'est l'accès au marché, mais également l'accès à une technologie moderne. Donc, comme je disais tantôt, et le fait aujourd'hui de pouvoir mettre en réseau ces femmes dans le domaine de l'industrie verte qui sont un peu partout dans le monde, le fait de les mettre en réseau, soit, comme je dis, à travers des réseaux ou à travers des plateformes collaboratives, ça peut permettre aujourd'hui de faire un partage d'expériences ou de technologies.
In my opinion, as well, the main challenge today is about how to make these industries to be up to date in terms of legal and regulatory framework. I don't know if I was able to answer your questions very well. Otherwise, if there are other questions, I'm open to address them. Unfortunately, where I am is not very much favorable, but I can still hear and respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. And I take your last point on improving the regulatory framework that the industries operates in. And also your previous point on showing businesses what the advantages are of staying in a green industry. And I think it's also very important that when we show these advantages, it should really be evidence-based. There should be strong evidence in the way we are making policies. Thank you very much. My next question is to Dr. Annalyn Chetty. Dr. Chetty, what changes have taken place already in your country following the research and capacity building that took place during project implementation?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Sanvanani, Dumelang, Molo, Morweni, Namaste. Warm greetings from a very sunny South Africa. South Africa, at the outset, wants to express their gratitude to UNIDO for being considered to participate in the WG program. We certainly believed we benefited from it in terms of heightening our awareness of our shortcomings, specifically with regards to gender mainstreaming and the green economy. Our government has identified, following the study, transformation and greening the economy as two of its key priority areas, which is currently top of government's agenda. And we've been asked to ensure that it infiltrates throughout every single plan of ours, which is what we're currently doing. Since the beginning of OVG as well, whilst it's not related, South Africa has launched 6 master plans just from the Department of Trade and Industry itself. And each of these master plans has a critical element of transformation, ensuring that the increased participation of women across all of these different sectors. Over and above that, we've also introduced and will be participating in key initiatives relating to the green economy, such as the circular economy, which we definitely intend targeting women-owned businesses to participate in. We will be developing an electrical vehicle roadmap, as well as the hydrogen economy policy. Since the inception of the study, the South African government has also hosted a number of webinars and seminars around opportunities for women in the green economy, specifically in waste management towards a greener economy. The webinar included financial institutions which encouraged financial access and opportunities for women in the waste management sector. Over and above that, there were numerous discussions that the South African government held through our Department of Women. It was the National Sanitary Dignity Program, which includes initiatives across our 9 provinces, focusing on women economic opportunities in the Sanitary Dignity Program. Also looking at creating opportunities for women in the waste management of used sanitary products. So I think this was quite innovative on the part of the department. There's also been training workshops held with women-owned businesses on value chain opportunities, specifically with regards to green economy work. The Department of Women and other departments like the Department of Environment and the Department of Trade and Industry has participated in the development of a master plan on the oceans economy. One of the focus areas of the green economy opportunities for women across value chains, including maritime, offshore oil and gas explorations, and the fishing sector. Then our Department of Women, together with our Department of Mineral Rights and Energy, and the Women in Energy, included Women in Renewable Energy and a Nuclear Energy webinar. Several meetings were held within that sector, focusing on a high-level Africa Energy Indaba. Most of you may be familiar, and I think one of the speakers has mentioned it. We do have a problem and a challenge with reliable energy supply in South Africa, and I think it's absolutely perfect that we're now starting to look at alternative forms of energy, and it therefore creates numerous opportunities for women across the board. We would like to, in discussing, the way forward on this project, we realize that this project has added a lot of value to us, and we do want to get into the next phase. We do want to get funding so we don't lose. We've described it as a baby that we gave birth to, and we don't want to give this baby up for adoption. We really want to nurture it and grow it and create more opportunities for women across South Africa so that they can become a force to be reckoned with in a very male-dominated sector, which is the green economy space. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and we look forward to our continued participation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chatty. I think I fully agree with you that we should not give out this baby for adoption, and we work very hard to make sure that we ensure some kind of continuity in the project. My next question goes to Dr. Amira Kado. Dr. Kado, could you please tell us how the key findings of the work could inform the global advancement of a gender-responsive green industrial agenda?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the team. It's an excellent and great work. We need it, really, we need it. The study shows that most policies are unfortunately gender blend, despite the fact that countries have ministry or organisms dedicated to women's affairs. There is a real lack of capacity building and good understanding for the intersectionality of the gender dimension. And the payoff of engendering policies, but here the green industry, we have an additional challenge. We have a double challenge because also we have a clear definition of green economy and the green industry. So we have a double challenge. Really, this kind of study will inform us about the need for creating a new KPI. We must work on KPI and sex disaggregated data. This is a crucial pillar. How we must create standard KPI and ask to apply them for, and it will be a very important, with a very important added value. For example, we can add them to the ESG approach, which is a very important metrics for the green industry. Second, working on capacity building, we have had in the study some insights to work on capacity building for engendering policies and gender mainstream. Three, working on studies that highlight sector by sector the payoff of women inclusion in the economic sector for the green industry. We use an important word, which is optimization. Optimization of what? Optimization of resources. We know that in each industry we have three pillars. We have human factor, capital, which is machinery plus resources, but scientific research in general have shown that women in general have a better ability and vision to optimize the use of natural resources and other resources in general. So women for the green industry, they have a better ability to satisfy and improve the target of optimization. This kind of research, this kind of study will enhance people to make additional research, to create a strong KPI, to boost policymakers to engender their policies, because the payoff of including women in general in the sector can bring us additional plus, if you want, 35% in GDP. I would like to add something, Dr. Nimo, about education. For me, as a university professor, boosting all the different kinds of industry is the basic factor is education. Green industry belongs in a major part, and here we will see that women suffer from tremendous challenges. Green industry belongs in a major part to STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and social sciences. For the first part, STEM is a fast-growing field that needs a continuous commitment, and we need to upgrade and improve our skills. But unfortunately, women suffer from limited financial ability, from limited mobility, and from limited availability. This kind of upgrading must be empowered to improve the professional skills of women. And here we can explain why we have this limited part of women in the green industry. But there is also a very important other factor, which is technology transfer and innovation. Green industry seeks a higher level of innovation, but despite the fact that we have important level of scientific research done by women, the step from scientific research to technology transfer is limited, because also they have limited financial ability, availability, time, but also problem of mobility. So this is a first step of the research. the research brings us very valuable results that policymakers must take into account. And I think that in the future, maybe we must think about what kind of skills for the 21st century in terms of gender. What will be the needed skills for women in the Anthropocene era? How can technology transfer and innovation must be boosted to overcome the technological divide from one hand, but also to bring to women this kind of empowerment in all the different fields of industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kadour. Very interesting point you raised there about the part women have to play in the protection of natural resources. I think that's a great point in promoting the further inclusion of women in green industry. Our next question goes to Ms. Litokonolo. How can we make green industry more attractive to women, in your opinion?
Thank you very much. So I think an important thing is creating awareness. And so this entails knowing the context which you operate in as a business. And for the South African Wind Energy Association, we are an NGO which advocates for the development of the wind industry. And we have a strong relationship with our members who are in the private sector. And so that gives us an opportunity or a platform to also drive recommendations such as those coming out of your report, in that they can implement business practices that empower women. And so to give an example, the association has launched, or it has been a year already, a gender diversity working group in which now we're currently working on a gender diversity charter in which we're going to invite the private sector to commit to the objectives that we would like to reach as an industry. And so making use of the platforms that you have becomes an important way of bringing women into the green economy and keeping those that are in the economy already to also create an environment where they can also develop themselves. And supporting skills development programs, and that requires active identification for funding, which is another space that the wind industry has successfully moved into, in which partnerships with the EWCTA in South Africa has been signed on already, in which we were able to take in about 15 interns to be placed in different businesses within the wind value chain. And so engagement during policymaking is also quite key, especially for entrepreneurs, because they can get the knowledge about the sector and how it will operate. The wind sector in South Africa is about 10 years old. It's in its 11th year now. And within the procurement programs and just being able to have a wind farm operating, there are commitments in which there has to be a revenue share that is directed to women-owned businesses, and having platforms that share that information so that women entrepreneurs can also take part in the growth of the sector as well. And I think what's also important is knowing or gathering the information through research into the type of businesses that are operating in the sector and the quality and magnitude of their contribution. Drawing back to the point about specific research, what we've also done, and I think it was such great timing to have your report coming out, the gender diversity study within the wind and solar sector, which we will be doing with GIZ, and it has been endorsed by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. And so that's really just a demonstration of pulling in all the resources that are available and forming a partnership to actually gather all the data that we need and have a baseline demonstration of where we are as an industry that operates within the green economy and how we can actually go further and close the gaps that we constantly speak of in these platforms, and what we know from history and what has come out in research. And so I think the important question is, how do we all on this workshop, how do we join hands in actually implementing all the recommendations together? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Swai. I'm very pleased to hear about the Gender Diversity Charter for your association. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about, you talked about interns that we're going to join these companies. What was the distribution amongst these interns of men and women?
So over 50%, just over 50% of the interns that have been placed were actually female, I think, which is also quite a great representation of what it is we're trying to achieve, and also looking at how the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan is also focusing on gender mainstreaming in its development. So I think by the end of this year, we'll have a lot of young women who are ready to take on bigger roles in the sector.
That's really great to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I have a couple more open questions for the panelists. I would like to ask now Miss Amy Mbengwe, if you are able to connect. Are you satisfied that some progress is being made in the economic empowerment of women in the green transition, and why? Okay, I think maybe Amy's connection is also still not good. So I would throw the same question then to Miss Lucia Ruiz.
Sé que tendremos nuevamente la conexión en un momento de Amy.
Soon enough. So,
no sé si es muy radical decir que no estoy necesariamente, creo, satisfecha con los progresos que se están haciendo, porque quizás cuando hablamos de estos progresos estamos olvidando dar un paso atrás, y ya creo que Amira lo mencionó cuando habló del rol de la mujer en otros espacios, ¿no? Como el de la conservación, como el del cuidado de recursos naturales, etc. ¿Es necesario pensar en este empoderamiento económico? Sí, pero no podemos olvidar que aún hay una serie de brechas de servicios que las mujeres tienen antes de siquiera hablar de este empoderamiento. En países como el mío, donde ya mencioné que hay una alta tasa de informalidad en las actividades, también hay unas grandes brechas en el acceso a servicios y por lo tanto en el acceso a derechos en las mujeres. Acceso a la salud, brechas en educación, brechas en conectividad, la distancia entre lo rural y lo urbano es muy grande. Por lo tanto, por supuesto que es importante seguir trabajando en este empoderamiento. Por supuesto que se está haciendo grandes avances y los aspectos que mencioné de acceso a financiamiento, etcétera, son importantes, pero no debemos dejar de pensar que hay que mirarlo de manera holística. Hay que siempre detenernos, respirar y entender que este empoderamiento va a ser muchísimo más efectivo y va a tener un impacto mayor si además entendemos que hay brechas, retrasos en temas de educación, de salud, de conectividad. Ni siquiera estoy hablando de salud reproductiva, estoy hablando de salud en general. Para las mujeres en muchos lugares del país. Entonces, eso es, yo creo, no quise ser tan directa de decir que no estaba satisfecha, porque sé que los esfuerzos se están haciendo, pero sí es importante entender que por el momento en países en desarrollo como el mío, los esfuerzos tienen que ser incluso más intensos y que un retroceso en derechos de la mujer, en acceso a un montón de derechos de parte de ella, realmente nos retrasa muchísimo. Y para eso solo un comentario. Es tan importante entonces una interrelación entre lo público y lo privado. Cuando en el sector público, en el gobierno, se encuentran determinadas situaciones en el que parece que estamos retrocediendo en un montón de temas, entre ellos seguramente los derechos de las mujeres, es donde tenemos que encontrar un soporte, un aval en ese sector privado, en ese sector social, en esa base social que tiene que recordarnos cada día las necesidades que como mujeres se tienen a nivel de todos los derechos que deben de cumplirse, más un empoderamiento económico que en países como el mío representan las cabezas de familia fundamentalmente.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ruiz. I would now like to call on Suyata. Do you agree with Ms. Ruiz's response? Do you have anything to add?
Of course, I do agree. I mean, according to me, because I was also involved in the research work, a lot more things need to be covered. But yes, it's really good to know that things are moving. There are initiatives such as this program that will actually be beneficial for women entrepreneurs in green industry, and not just entrepreneurs, but also the professionals. But I would like also to reiterate what I already presented, that the next step should be like to define green industry. As I was reading the comments, definitely one of the participants wrote that we really need to know what green industry means, and also the sectors or the subsectors that we identified. Those have greater potential for becoming green, and there is not only a poor understanding of the context of women working in these sectors, but also the information available regarding green business is also scattered. And as we have also seen in terms of policy, all the governments have made positive promises and have incorporated gender equality to different degrees. And gender industry plans, green industry plans, to some extent, however, the key constraints are the implementation of these existing policies. So there needs to be more collaboration between the private and the public sectors, so that businesses truly get on board with government targets. And also there is a need for monitoring mechanisms to understand the extent to which green industry benefits women entrepreneurs. Also, again, I reiterate that at present, the synergy between green industry and women entrepreneurship is missing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suyata. We heard about more collaboration between public and private sector, but also monitoring the policies better to understand really how they benefit women and other groups. I would like to now ask also, okay, Amy is here now. Amy, maybe you want to also respond to that particular question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, sorry, I had connection problems.
The question was, are you satisfied that progress is being made in economic empowerment of women in the green transition?
Exactly, yeah. En fait, oui, je suis particulièrement satisfaite parce que il y a véritablement des progrès qui ont été faits depuis un certain nombre d'années, notamment pour accompagner cette transition-là dans l'économie verte, surtout des femmes. Mais ce que j'aimerais rajouter encore et insister là-dessus, c'est par rapport au cadre juridique et réglementaire. À mon avis, il doit être accompagné de mesures incitatives. Donc, des mesures incitatives qui puissent aujourd'hui permettre l'accès à cette industrie verte-là à un plus grand nombre de femmes. Également, l'autre aspect qui me semble être important, c'est l'accompagnement dans la recherche et développement. Donc, pour le passage à échelle de ces entreprises-là. Par exemple, nous sommes dans le recyclage des déchets plastiques. Nous faisons du recyclage en intrants, mais nous aimerions passer à échelle dans le cadre de la transformation.
In the framework of transformation and finished products. And sometimes the scaling up is quite problematic. So I think we also need to really focus on this aspect. And as I was saying earlier, in my first intervention, is to really see how do we accompany these different companies, not at an individual level, but see how by intervening and at their different development stage, we can support them, not only for starting companies who are in their initial stage, or it can also be for units that are already have a certain level of growth. But we need to see how we can leverage them so that they can be competitive at the international level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. I have one more question and I think I will ask this time, Dr. Chetty, what has changed since COVID? What has changed in the situation when we are talking about how has the pandemic changed things when we were talking about women's economic empowerment in green industry or not?
I think that's a very loaded question. I'm not so sure I can respond and say, COVID has changed the green economy space itself, but it has definitely changed the world as we knew it. It's changed a lot of things for South Africans. We find that in certain sectors, there were certain, I think, enterprises really grew. We find that in the 2 years, our economy has repurposed itself. In certain sectors where it was really threatened, especially at the beginning of COVID, where we shut down our entire, all our industry, a lot of companies repurposed themselves. So they adapted to COVID and they strengthened their resources as such. If I can give you an example, one of the areas that we struggled with in South Africa is having sufficient PPE. And the only opportunities we had, all our borders were closed, so obviously we couldn't import PPE. So we reorganized and repurposed a lot of our clothing manufacturers to start to manufacture masks and to start to manufacture other critical infrastructure or critical protective personal equipment that we needed. And we find that during that time, our industries within that were producing PPE just grew. We re-emphasized localization because we're wanting to build up on our local resources and our local capacities within the manufacturing sector. And we started to increase resources available to the different enterprises. We created special funds that people could tap into, people where there was loss of income. We tried to compensate for that and really strengthen our capacity as a country as opposed to us being completely dependent on the rest of the world. So whilst it may not have had relevance to the green economy itself, but I would certainly think it did make an impact on manufacturing as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Dr. Chetty. And Dr. Kado, I see that you have your hand up. So I think you want to contribute to that question.
Oui, I will answer in French.
So yes, I will answer in French. Je voudrais juste rajouter quelque chose par rapport à la réponse mondiale, par rapport à la COVID. C'est vrai que la pandémie, it is true that the pandemic really had a huge impact on the world level, but that also helped with resilience. and flexibility. And this need for resilience and flexibility really boosted different sectors towards digital transformation and green transition. So a lot of initiatives across the world really impacted their work towards this transition. On the other hand, we've really had different, in different countries, we had gender-based design, which was detected during different lockdowns. So on one way, we've had needs to move towards green industries. We really had to work with violence against women, for example. When we were really, there really was a need to work towards green transition. So we are almost at the third year of the pandemic, and we hope that it will be done soon. But today, this type of work that will really link the gender aspect with the digital and green transformation, it really creates a very timely need for adaptation and adoption as well, adopting new governance practices, whether it's at the government level or at the private sector level. We need to adopt good practices that are fair, equitable, and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kador. You are saying that we saw that there was a lot of resilience despite the challenges and flexibility. However, we saw increasing problems for women, like increasing violence against women, etc. I think some of this flexibility that you talk about is what we would need more and more globally if we are going to be able to withstand the impacts of a rapidly changing world, basically. So I'm not sure if any other panelists wanted to take that question again, but I think I'll move on to the next one. So I will ask, where can international donors make the biggest difference? In what areas? And I will open that question, first of all, to Ms. Swai to give us a perspective of an industry association. So in your opinion, from the perspective of an industry association, where can donors make the biggest difference?
I'd definitely say it's in research and gathering the more information on what are the trends that we have, but also in supporting the move towards implementing the recommendations. So a lot of the times we speak of networking, collaboration, we speak of mentoring. And I think that is the biggest one, is having funding towards mentorship programs, which we have run in the past year. And so that's definitely an area that requires funding, because the association's income is based on the member base and also partnership agreements such as those. And so definitely through those are the two areas, research and into implementation of recommendations, particularly around mentorship programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swai. And I would throw the same question again. So, I mean, I could leave the question open for any of the Suyata then. Dr. Ganguly?
Yes, no, definitely. I agree with what has been said, that the major role where the donors can play is definitely research, as well as implementing all the recommendations that were made, the role models, networking, and others. And also definitely to integrate gender, the way in which there can be different programs and policies. In fact, just revisiting the policies, we don't really need new policies, they're already there. Revisiting policies that will help the countries to achieve the global sustainable development goals of sustainable industrialization, gender equality, and others. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. Revisiting the policies, amending the policies to make them more gender inclusive. That's a great need.
I believe that when we're talking about women, it's really important for them to be able to show their capacity. So this is not in contradiction with a just transition. It's just to take into consideration all of these differences to be just.
I agree with you, but I would also like to add that it's not so much about putting the needs of women above the needs of men, but about understanding the needs of all groups of people, because it's by understanding those needs that we can make the right policies that not only help to provide opportunities for both men and women, but also to get the best benefits of the participation of both men and women in the economy. In a situation where you have women who are basically half of the population in mostly low productivity employment, then that is not contributing effectively to the productivity of a country. And so you will often see that in countries where you have much more women in low productivity employment, those countries have a much higher potential that they could reach if they could raise the employment of women to more productive occupations, such as many of those are found in the green industry. Okay, so there is another question. What specific opportunities are available for women in green energy production between these countries? Maybe Ms. Swai would like to answer that on South Africa. I know you've mentioned a few already, but.
I think it's a bit of a tricky one, green energy production, but I can just share what the mechanisms are within the renewable energy procurement program. So during construction phase and the operational phase of the wind farms, the revenue that the wind farms generate, they're supposed to empower businesses within the communities operating around them, but also just businesses in general if they do not find the services that they require. And so that can be a lot of varying aspects, from social economic development, enterprise development within the local communities. Some of the projects that we have seen include the opening of centers for young children, aftercare centers or daytime centers where kids go. And there's also been health-focused initiatives that look at improving the eyesight issues within the community. So those are driven by service providers, which go to the communities and support the communities in that as well. So I think those are the more meaningful projects that we do see. But within the green economy space, I mean, you get project development, the project development area, which involves a lot of licensing, environmental impact assessment. So there is a lot of technical work and legal and finance work that goes into that. And those are those are areas of opportunity that compared to what you get with the operational wind farms, there's also a gap in manufacturing, which currently it's not fully established, although there is great opportunity locally for the manufacturing of wind turbine components. And so that will obviously open a lot of space as well for technical services, which can be used when the wind farms are in full operation and during construction as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Soy. I see Ibrahima Sonko's hand is up. I will just unmute you now. Please, we can take your question now.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to commend the panelists for their clear interventions. My question is, how can technology transfer be possible, especially for Senegal? Because we know that women are in fish processing. You see them using firewood for fish, and we have a lot of sun in Senegal, and there's a lot of technology around using sun technology. So how could this be harnessed? Of course, it's just a contribution I'm about to make, because Senegal is doing a lot for women. A lot of funds have been created to support women, and there are no limits to what women can do. And in the Ministry of Industry, we develop programs with UNIDO, such as multifunctional platforms that help to alleviate work that women have to do. And thanks to this program, we have been able to train a few women in entrepreneurship, and through our Food Technology Institute, we're working a lot to help women from farming products as well as fishery products. So let's say that we are really touching on various sectors for women. Something else that should be taken into account is that there's a project that has been developed to support women and men into agribusiness, a project that has helped many women to have and manage technology in transforming production of juice, for example. It's an interesting example to show that funding is a problem, of course, not just for women, but for men as well. And microfinance is also not that accessible because of some interest rate that could be high. Because they're also asked to provide collateral as well. So the problem is very complex, and it's not limited to women, but it's a problem that is faced by entrepreneurs, be they men and women. That's a contribution I wanted to make, and I also wanted to thank you. And I'm still waiting for your responses on technology transfer, especially in the solar area. For example, the study that was conducted in Senegal has been great, and we look forward to financing to support the results of this study.
Okay, Dr. Kado will answer your question on technology transfer. But I just want to say that in the area of financing, we did see during our surveys that across all of the 4 countries, there was really a great problem when it came to access to finance, as all of the countries showed that women were accessing financing mostly from family and friends. There was very little access, I think maybe less than 20% for all of the people surveyed across almost all countries. So there was very little access to formal financing, which is a problem when you are looking for financing for higher capital businesses or manufacturing, because of course the volume of financing that is needed is not one that you can easily get from family and friends or from informal sources, which makes us think of next steps that really should be taken for improving women's access to finance, and really also improving their skills, for putting together good packages or application packages to be able to access finance. But of course, there's much more, around that topic when you think of women's land rights and property rights and so on. Okay, so I will hand over to Dr. Kado, who would like to answer the question on technology transfer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ibrahima, for this important question. Je me représente, donc je suis chaire d'un master ingénierie de l'innovation et transfert de technologie.
So I'd like to introduce myself. Well, I'm also into technology and in transforming. I'm an engineer. And we have the property right organization that is working, and we are working with them in the field of research and action. When it comes to green industry and transformative work, I agree with you that there is a gap in the value chain, and that's the same with any other industry.
Africain, donc un défi très très important. Et il s'agit d'une, si vous voulez, d'une orientation récente. Et c'est cette orientation qui va nous permettre de créer les facteurs clés de compétitivité. Et là, là, il s'agit de la valorisation donc de vos recherches.
So we're really talking about valuing research, and as well as licensing and negotiation, economic negotiation, in managing transfer projects. So what I'm asking, and I really advise that you go towards the Senegalese agency, where you can find in their technology transfer the proper accompanying systems. So that we can really have through a different school, you can find the documents really important in this aspect. So when we're talking about promoting green industry, it really requires a very strong capacity in innovation, and also valuing, fostering competitivity. So when we're talking about technology transfer, it's really going from scientific research to fostering. It really requires meeting all of the different intellectual property requirements and licensing requirements. So it's a really long process that is very long, very complex, and that requires to take fully part in value add process. So something that requires money and time. I really thank you for really pointing out this very important aspect. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, madame.
Thank you so
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kado, for that comprehensive answer. I would take the next question from Dr. Srimal.
Yes.
Fernando.
Yes. Many thanks and good evening for inviting me. And I would like to ask a simple question. The unfolding socioeconomic situation in most parts of the world needs policy priorities to promote gender equality, right? So in this implementation during the UNIDO's project participation in these 4 countries, what was the political participation implementation for gender sensitive policies? Yes, that's my question. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure I understood the question very well. What was the political participation?
Yes, in these 4 countries, in implementing gender sensitive policies. I don't know whether you can hear, whether the line is clear, first thing?
Yeah.
Was it clear? Yeah. It's about political participation or political stakeholderships in implementing gender sensitive policies in these 4 nations where UNIDO has implemented projects. So that's the clear. Because you have been, your projects have been mostly addressing to socio-economic policies, from what I gather. So I thought, what was the political participation or their influence in getting these policies worked out in these countries? Yeah.
Well, first of all, for this project, for the first phase of this project, we were first of all reviewing green industry policies or policies related to green industry, and we were looking at how studying how gender responsive these policies were. And we had full participation from government in all of the 4 countries, usually from both the side of the Ministry of Industry or Environment, and also from the gender ministries of all of the countries. But we were also engaging directly with affected stakeholders from women's association, women entrepreneurs. We did focus group interviews with really interested stakeholders, but also surveys that were sent out to the public. So there was quite a high degree of participation for this project specifically. And we think this is the kind of engagement that is really needed in the policy development process between both governments and private sector, but also the public and women's association and other stakeholders that could benefit or be affected by such policies.
Yes, I would like to thank for the question. It is important to know that every country has a different kind of dynamic. The wealth of this project is that it brought together all the stakeholders, public sector, private sector, guilds, associations. In the case of Peru, we created a committee, and the committee followed up on the development of the project. The group included representatives from different ministries, the Ministry of the Environment, the Ministry of Industry, and the Ministry of Women's Affairs, 3 different industries. We also included the academia, different groups of civil society. The important thing is to know that solutions will come from all. Even though we're talking about public policies, everyone has to come together. The responsibility may rest on the government, but we all need to come together to find a solution. The first step is to learn about the problem, understand the problem, and then find solutions to that problem. In some cases, a political situation may reduce the kind of support to gender mainstreaming. The private sector, the academia, the guild will come into play to bring it back to the table. So it is a working together. We all need to be on the same page, sitting around the same table, working together. And when one of the members of the group is losing strength, the other members can come forward and support the program. Moving forward, we agree that it is interesting to do packages where we build capacities and provide funding, as a colleague previously mentioned. This will have to be a project that brings all the actors together to work together and find solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I fully agree with your comment about the different roles of different stakeholders and bringing them back to the topic or back to the point when some stakeholders are moving in a different direction. We are running out of time. I will just take 1 minute to, I can see Christophe Yveto's hand is up. I could just take 1 minute to hear from him.
Oui, bonjour à tous. Je suis Christophe Yvetot.
Hello everyone, my name is Christophe Yvetot. I represent UNIDO in Senegal, and I would really like to thank all of you for this very interesting webinar. It's very important, and I would really like to thank our colleagues in Senegal, like Asia Gay, who really spearheaded this project, as well as Ibrahima Sonko with the Minister of Development. And as Mrs. Rees said, this was really an opportunity to gather all of the different actors that don't have the habit of working on this subject, such as the Industrial Development Minister, the Environment Ministry, and different partners, as well as UN Women and UNIDO and different private sector instances. I think this project is very important because, as the international aspect shows, we're not talking about cultural specificities, but really different contexts when we're talking about countries, and really go beyond these barriers when we're talking about women in green industries. And this also allowed for a lot of people to understand what green industry really is. We're really talking about cross-cutting industries and different activities in different sectors. So we're talking about very high diversity and very important opportunities for women to work in these sectors. In Senegal, for example, it's had a very specific impact because not only were these aspects included in the National Environmental Plan, but also for the new industrialization program of Senegal from 2021 to 2035, and it included recommendations and conclusions, findings from this project. So this is one first step. We have to make sure that we can implement them. So there also is a very high opportunity, important opportunity. In Senegal, there's a general plan, which is the Senegal Emergence Plan. And now it has a green component, which is the Senegalese Green Emergence Plan, which we're taking part of, and it includes an industrial aspect. So we're really developing this industrial aspect with the government and different stakeholders and donors. And we would really like to guarantee that there is a very important women-based component so that they can have access to capacity and finance, but more generally, so that they can have access to green industries. So this is something that's very important. And my question really is that based on this and all 4 countries, how do we work together to really maintain this partnership, this regional, well, I guess, world really partnership, and to see how we can, based on these different recommendations, prepare a project document or an initiative that would allow to work with different world partners and see how they can really support this type of approach and extend it to other countries. and really also implement and accelerate implementation in countries that have already included these recommendations. This adventure was very important to us. I would like to thank all the stakeholders, and it allowed us to really work with the government. And this allows also to gather information, and without information, there's no action. So this is the first step. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christophe. And indeed, mobilizing that action to take us to the next phase of this program is indeed why we are here. And as we are now coming to the end of this workshop, unfortunately, I will have to stop taking questions and try to close. But I would like to look at everything that we have discussed today. We learned about all of the 4 countries that in all of them, industrial policies that were analyzed or the green policies were not really considering the needs of women who basically make up half of the population. So there's a lot of room to improve these policies, to make them more gender responsive. We talked about some of the specific problems existing that create barriers to transformation, access to land, access to financing, access to education, some specific barriers for the green industry, a lack of a clear understanding of how green industry should be implemented as well, limited access to the type of technologies that we need in green industry, lack of incentives to enter the industry, and also high costs of entering the industry and limited competitiveness due to high manufacturing costs. But we know that there are lots of opportunities as well. And we know that women feel very positive about the green industry, because I think that to them, they look at this as a way of getting some kind of social transformation, because this is a sector that tries to be more inclusive, that tries to be more fair. So there's a high interest from women to access this sector. So then we ask ourselves, how can we empower women to be able to benefit more from the sector, given the challenges that we have on access to finances, resources, and also the limited visibility of the importance of women. So, knowing all this, what are our next steps? So we would like to continue in the next phase of this program to work with any of the interested countries to actually carry out the amendment or development of policies, putting in more gender responsive measures and adopting these policies. We heard about high problems in or low awareness of opportunities available for women. So we would like to also work on that in the next phase. We heard about access to finance, and I think this was a big issue across all of the countries. So this is something that in the next phase we would like to work on, specifically on building and improving women's access to finance, practical ways of improving their access to formal financing, but also giving them more support to be able to access more alternative modes of financing that could be useful in a green transformation. We would like to also continue the capacity building for policymakers and provide concrete support to women's business networks, and also support for implementing policies and deepening the focus towards the improved awareness of opportunities, and also some opportunities for business matching of women's own businesses with international businesses, so improving the access to international markets, and also to extend the partnerships with donor organizations and the private sector. So having said that, we would like to stay in touch with the participants, and we would like to thank everyone who has attended this event, and especially our speakers and our panelists. Ms. Ruiz, thank you very much for joining our panel. Ms. Soai, Dr. Chetty, Dr. Kadu, Dr. Ganguly, and I hope I'm not missing anyone there. And thank you very much for joining us on this panel. I would also like to thank all of the colleagues in the background who have been working tirelessly, talking to you during the chat function, and also who worked on the project implementation as well. Our Chief Technical Advisor, Eliana Gutierrez Amo, our national coordinators, Asia Gaye, Bumi Yats, Maria Rosa Moran, and also for this event, our events manager, Yolanda Mabuto. Thank you all very much for the hard work you've done in putting together the event. But of course, I would like to thank all of the countries that participated, Cambodia, Peru, South Africa, Senegal, and of course the German Corporation for supporting this agenda and for the financial support that was provided. Thank you very much to all of the participants for joining, and we will provide the video. I think the link has been provided already to the video if you would like to rewatch any of the sessions, but also please feel free to look deeper into the findings of the research that we did on the UNIDO website. Thank you very much to everybody.